today, our topic today is building a remote team. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on introductions, but I am bringing up a wonderful resource. You are going to be so excited and grateful that I have shared her with you. Her name is Chryssy from Kolor Addikt. I know I said shared her with you because I feel like she's mine. But Chryssy from Kolor Addikt delivers strategic consulting, marketing, and creative services for small business owners that results in higher sales conversions, engaged buyers, and desirable growth. And that is the truth. And so she has helped me to grow from a solopreneur, one person team to having multiple people working at different levels. And so, Chryssy, I'm going to give you the floor and ask that you help us with building a remote team.
Absolutely. So if you are not ready, get some notes, get some paper, some pens, make sure that the pen has ink and all that stuff. All right, so I'm gonna run through this, and I want to introduce myself real quickly. So again, as she said, I'm Chryssy. I'm a brand strategist and web designer, but most importantly, I run a creative agency, and I'm the creative director. I have a team of 10. We just hired literally one person today, so that's 11 now, and we're all over. So I have people in the U.S., Cali, Michigan, where I am, and then I also have some people in the Philippines, Nigeria, Kenya, Pakistan, India. Really, I've worked with people all over. I don't discriminate. If you're good talent, I know how to find it. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So I want to gauge, so you guys can get familiar with using the chat. Tell me where you are in your business. Are you a solopreneur? Do you already have a team? Are you looking for a team? Just throw that in the chat so I can kind of tailor this content to who you are and what you're looking for. But we're going to hop right in regardless, and I'll pay attention to the chat to see kind of where everyone is in their business. So most importantly, before you get started with hiring anything, a lot of people try to outsource everything in the early stages of business simply because they don't want to do it, or to be honest, they're lazy, or they're scared of the unknown, or it's several reasons. Whatever reasons make sense to you, whatever resonates with you. But what you really have to identify is what's actually falling through the cracks. And then also, if it is something that you are unknown, like there's an unknown or something you need to learn, you need to make sure you at least have a basic knowledge about it, so that when someone does come on, you're able to kind of, no one's going to come onto your team as a new business, right? You're not like an established with where you have like different processes where people are just kind of funneling in, like a McDonald's, right? McDonald's has like an assembly line. So you need to make sure that whenever you're hiring, you kind of lay down that groundwork so that people are able to step into the process. And if you're growing that process and building that process with the person, you need to be open and transparent about that. So first and foremost, assess your business. What's falling through the cracks? Where do you need the most help? And hire for that one person. If you are, so I see Hazel solo, not looking to hire right now. I don't know why not. You probably in the back of your mind think that you're not ready or that it's too expensive. I have lots of things for you. Feel free to throw it in the chat if you want to share. But it's very hard. I think there's a misconception around entrepreneurship. I think we believe we have to wear all the hats. But naturally, we all have weaknesses, right? Like I'm sure that there is a sales piece of your business you could be outsourcing to generate more leads. I'm sure there's the social media marketing. Maybe you need an admin. I think everyone needs an admin. Even if you don't run a business, you need an admin, okay? Like life is pulling you in a million directions. And so I would strongly consider that you potentially start looking into outsourcing, especially if you're revenue generating, okay? So my second piece is creating your job application and description. And so this is perfect if you haven't hired anyone or you're not looking to hire anyone and you're like, I don't even know what they would do, right? So what you're going to do is take a week, okay? Put a notebook on your desk, and just simply every time you do something, I want you to ask yourself, is this something that X role could fulfill? If it is, write it on the paper. Right. So this is the easiest way to fulfill a need, even when you don't realize it exists, because there's certain things right now in your business that you're doing that you really don't need to be doing. So if you're working on, say, sending email updates to clients and you ask yourself, is this something I can train someone to do fairly easy? Yes, it is. You're going to add it to that list. By the end of the week, naturally, you'll have a job description. Otherwise, what ends up happening the reverse is people Google, like they might be hiring for an admin, and they Google all these templates for admin job description, or what should I have my admin do, when in reality, it needs to be tailored to what you're currently doing. Because the biggest challenge I see, people hire a person on their team and they give them all of the work that they wouldn't even have done regardless. And so they feel like they're wasting their money and their investment into their resources or their team, when in reality, you hired that person because you were dropping the ball on something. And so it's important that they work on those things so that the ball still doesn't get dropped. A lot of times we see this person with kind of like unlimited availability, and we give them all the passion projects, right? All the things that we want to do that's going to grow and expand our business, when in reality, that's not the reason we need them. We need them because the day-to-day operations today are failing, right? We need them because we're missing our deadlines. We need them because clients are messaging us and saying, where is this? Where is that? And you got to go and dig for it. So really make sure that you hire them and you fulfill that actual need. It's my number one advice for you. Okay. After you have that application, you're going to decide on the commitment. So realistically, and be open to change, but realistically decide like how much time does this person need to spend with me? Is this work that they can get done? Is it project-based or is it time-based? Meaning, is it something that they can get done whenever? Or are there certain meetings or certain other like time constraints they would need to work around? So start thinking through that. Okay, we're gonna talk about pay now. All right, so pay is the number one reason I think people do not hire or build their team, especially remotely. They're thinking, how do I make this thing work? How do we all work together? How do I pay people? All those questions start to surface. And if you have questions, feel free. We're going to answer them at the end, but feel free to throw them in the chat. But around pay, you can find all types of talent. At the end of the day, especially if you're working with contractors, you can develop really great relationships with people who will work really, really hard and give you exactly what you need at a price that makes sense for both of you. As an entrepreneur, you are able to kind of negotiate this. There's no such thing as like too little or too less. And that's a real thing. You can, and I hate to say this, but it's very true. You can find anyone at any budget. You really can. Because at the end of the day, what's necessary for you needs to happen, and you need to invest in that. And at the same time, it could really make or break someone else's. So to say that, oh, I don't have enough, or honestly, a piece of it is just like laziness and not wanting to train and not wanting to like being unmotivated around hiring in that whole process. But I'm going to give you some tips right now around the hiring process so that you can find someone at your budget, negotiate, they can save your life. And then now that they are working for you and you're gelling, you're able to give them bonuses and increases. Everyone on my team can tell you I give increases and bonuses all the time. All the time. I love to do it. I like to just sneak it in there. They never know when it's coming. But when it comes to the hiring process, the first thing you want to do, and I'm going to give platforms in a second that you can use online to kind of find talent. But the first thing you want to do is figure out how you can weed out people. So there are lots of talent on the internet today, right? If you put out a job post anywhere right now, you're going to get an influx of people. So the biggest thing you want to figure out, a lot of times we try to be generic, right? And we try to make sure that anyone can see themselves in the position. But at the end of the day, we really need to make sure we have ways to weed people out along the way. So one of my best tips, I use it till this day, literally just used it this week 5 times. I have 5 open positions, is using a code word. And so how this looks is inside of my job description, I have all the details. And then there's a line that says, please use cheeseburger in your cover letter. And what this does is it helps me really filter through people who don't read instructions, right? Something as simple as the word cheeseburger that should stick out, right? I'm a digital agency. I'm not, McDonald's, but it's something like cheeseburger should scream out at you. And so when I have all of this list of hundreds of people, I mean, lots of people will apply. When I have this list, I'm able to say, you didn't follow the instructions, delete, 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 delete. You need that. Trust me, because that's going to show up in the work that you do. You're going to have a scenario where someone didn't write cheeseburger. If you choose to use cheeseburger, whatever you want, but someone didn't write cheeseburger and they look so great on paper, But you don't want that person because they're probably rushing through things. They're probably going to miss things in your instructions, right? A whole entire line that could be crucial. That could be make or break to a business, right? If I send you a to-do for a client and you miss an entire line, that line could say anything. So it's super important that you add something to filter out all the applications. My other tip would be is to build some type of assessment so that you can compare people. So we do like test, we do an application process. We have them record a Loom video, LOOM.com. Anyone who knows me knows I love Loom. Okay, I love Loom. So have them record a Loom video and add it to a Google form. This keeps you out of interviews as much as possible. You want to interview as little people as possible. You want to really weed it down to like a good 3 to 5 tops. So you're going to go through all of the applicants, whoever use your code word, great. You're going to send them a form or an assessment and say, fill this out within 24 hours. That gives them a sense of urgency. That's the second way you filter through. And then right after that, you look at the results and kind of narrow it down to 5 people. And those videos too, really, the Loom videos, they really do help you understand like how they communicate. Sometimes it's a culture thing, honestly. There are certain types of personalities that gel well together. And that's one of my tips at the end, is just to understand company culture and how you work. But I'll touch on that in just a second. But finally, doing your remote interviews, they should be short, brief, and kind of some things you want to look out for is making sure they have a good connection, making sure if you're on client calls, right, depending on the type of work you do, if they're gonna be interfacing with clients, it's probably important that they have good lighting, not super good, it doesn't have to look like a studio, but that you can see them, you can hear them, all those things. But you also want to pay attention to like how they answer questions. Are they confident? This is like kind of a real interview. You can get a lot within 15 to 20 minutes. So take the time to really ask really good questions, but then also I kind of treat it like a formality just to make sure. You'd be surprised. I've interviewed people and I've heard like chickens like going berserk in the background. And how embarrassing would that be if you're on a call with a client and one of your team members has like super loud chickens like going crazy. So you'd be surprised. So just jump on that call. Do not skip that step. It's important to make sure you guys gel well together. Okay, so real quick, places to look for people. And I have a few different places. So you can use standard job sites like Indeed, Monster, just Google hiring, and there are lots of things. You can also use freelancer platforms like Upwork, Fiverr. Another tool that I've used for outsourcing, especially overseas, is going to be something like Outsourcely. And then Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram, of course, right? Everyone knows I love Instagram, but Facebook has their own like hiring that you can put out. It actually does work. Put a job application on Facebook and you will get people to reply. And then when it comes to Instagram and LinkedIn, you're kind of just posting it. Same thing with LinkedIn, though. I believe they have a job section. But I want to do a quick fire round of quick tips that I would not skip. So the first one is going to be doing a test or trial period. Now this, if you're coming from like a 9-to-5 type of background, which most of us are, we've had jobs in other places before we started our business. This doesn't really exist in that world, but you have more than enough freedom to kind of try this. But basically what it is once you interview that person and you want to move on to the next step, they're not quite hired yet, right? So they have to kind of prove themselves. And what you want to do is you want to set up some type of test environment for you to get a feel for them and them to get a feel for you. Now, I personally do paid tests, but you do not have to do paid tests. A lot of people online don't do paid tests, but you can do whatever you want. At the end of the day, it shouldn't be extreme, of course. You don't want to have them on for like a month if you're doing an unpaid thing. Mine are paid, so we typically do like a week. And so what you want to do is look at that notebook full of your list and figure out how you can test each and every one of those things. So say, for example, if you had client communication on that list, you want to make sure that maybe part of that test task is to draft a client communication when we're behind on a project. Something as simple as that, right? And maybe they actually send it to the client, but you want to have them get a feel for what it's like so that no one walks away from the relationship kind of like, oh, I didn't know this, or oh, I wasn't expecting for it to be like this. So it's a way for you both. It's kind of like that dating almost. You guys are dating each other in that phase. And then number 2 is create a kick-ass onboarding plan. Please do not throw your people into chaos. And if you do, it's okay too. Just tell them it's chaos and that you need them to help you make it less chaotic. But for the most part, when it comes to onboarding, know what tools they need access to. The most frustrating thing as a new like contractor or employee is to consistently have to like ask, can I get access to this? Every time you go to do something, there's no access to it, or you didn't think through those things. And for your first time, right, if you've never hired anyone, I strongly consider, well, 1, know that you're going to mess up. And number 2, when you are giving access to something, again, document it somewhere so that when you go to do this again, it's on repeat. So like I said, I'm hiring 5 people right now, 4 technically, because I just hired 1 today. It's not a huge thing like it would normally be, because I already know all the access they need. And my assistant is just going to follow this checklist and get her onboarded. Okay, so if you really think through what are the access, what are the tools that I use, what do they need to fulfill their job, make sure that's documented. Okay. My other tip is build a 90-day roadmap. Okay. If you hire someone and you're testing them out and they've passed the test and now you're going to move forward, it's really important to not expect everything of them on day 1 or day 30. So what I do is I take my ideal, what I want them to do, what I want them to learn, and I break it down. So by the end of day 30, I want you to be able to do, X, Y, Z. By the end of day 60, I expect you to be able to do 1, 2, 3. And by the end of day 90, of course, you're going to do X, Y, Z, 1, 2, 3, and also be able to do ABC. These are all just different tasks. It's not a lot. But what this does is it sets expectations with them, right? How many times have you been in a job and, halfway in, you don't know where you're going? Especially as a new business, it's important that your team members, they know where they're headed, because this is a business that doesn't have really much like documentation, most likely, if you're a new business. Even if you're an existing business, I work with businesses been around for years and don't have the documentation that they should. So it's important that they know kind of where they're headed. And that's why I do that 90-day roadmap. And you're going to schedule a check-in to go over it on day 1, as well as day 90, and check-ins in between. Okay, so that's my tip number 4, which is my final tip, is make sure you schedule one-on-ones. Okay, it's super, super important. Schedule one-on-ones to make sure that they know that they're going to touch base with you, and make sure that you build that culture of feedback and improvements, and making sure that they're confident in being able to come to you and ask questions and get feedback and give you feedback, even because you need it. Okay, so that is my final tip. I'm going to check the comments for questions. Pass it back off to AIB. And I'm just going to check the chat. Doesn't look like we have any questions. I'm curious if Hazel is still with us, if she or he has any questions. And I want to know why you're not hiring. Hi, Rhonda. No problem. No problem. Thank you guys for coming. Build your team. It's super crucial to your business. Trust me. You cannot go far along.
I just did what I tell everybody else not to do, which is I was muted and I was saying, that's exactly what I was saying, that Hazel is retired. And I was saying that you actually should win an award, Chryssy, for stopping at exactly 4:20 when we are starting our Q&A portion. And so that was fantastic. And that was a wealth of information, especially for anybody that is working for themselves, working by themselves, and getting started with building a team, and just all of those. Because that was one of the first questions I had, is just how do you even figure out who you need? Because like you said, you're wearing so many hats, and sometimes you just want to take all of them off and get as many people as possible to help. But that's a challenge in itself. So I love
Absolutely.
the idea of keeping that notebook, writing those notes, and starting with that one person that can really help you to fill some of those gaps. Yeah.
And I think an assistant is probably the most common first hire. And it's because you kind of need someone to just help fill in the gaps, right? You're not superhuman. You're not functioning under chaos like you think you are. So it's important that you really understand, okay, I need help. Like that's one of the biggest qualities that I had to even grow. It's like, oh my gosh, I need help, because without it, you are going to drown for sure. It's gonna completely like be a immediate wall to your growth if you do not.
Yes. And so you have convinced Hazel that she does see she can use somebody to help, especially during the busy season. And I think that's another misconception when people think that they are building a team, that they have to have a full-time or part-time person. And they are, so here's a big one that I hear a lot. And I know there's a couple of people that registered that told me they couldn't attend, but would be listening to the replay. So this one is for you. I know that there's a friend of mine that is hiring for a specific project and is concerned that contractors won't have that, vigor, energy, commitment to what he's building, and just wants to have some tips to make sure that as he builds a remote team of contractors, that he's able to instill that in them and work with them, even though it's a short-term thing and not a long-term. So do you have
for sure. I would say first and foremost, figure out how you can test that. So you're definitely going to want a test type of project or test even week or test day. And then also in your interview, I mean, it's one of those things. That's hard to answer specifically because you say like vigorous, and to me that means something a little, or could mean something a little bit different. So I would want to
work as hard as if they were, taking on a role in a company.
Yeah, I think that's just a shift. I mean, I have project-based contractors that come on all the time and help with random things, and they work as hard as anyone else. And then I also have retainers that they're on like a certain, maybe they're on like a monthly salary or even a weekly salary. So I think that comes down to just hiring. And then if you think about it, for me, this is what I hear. It's really just a mindset shift you have to make, not so much in the people, because at the end of the day, they're going to want to not burn that bridge. And so if you hire a good person, they're going to bust their butt. Okay, they're going to make sure that they make a good impression because they want the opportunity for more work in the future, especially like, even if it is project-based, like to me, I like project-based because there's a concrete time that that you need me for. And then you come in, do what you're supposed to do, and you leave, and then you go on to other people. There are certain people who really do thrive in that. So I wouldn't say that that's necessarily a constraint, and just more of a shift you have to make. Some people don't even want the commitment. I've actually had that before. One of my old web designers, he wasn't interested in the commitment. He wanted more project-based work. So,
flexibility to be able to do
exactly.
he wanted. So is there a preference in the platform that you use to recruit if you know that you're doing that like a short-term or project-based hiring? Because I know you mentioned, go ahead. Yep.
Yeah, so I really like Upwork. That is one of my favorites. I probably connected with most of my contractors on there. It also protects you it protects both of you, but it protects you as the client to make sure that you get what you're supposed to get. They kind of hold the money in like a reserve. They call it an escrow account. So they hold it before they actually release it to the contractor. And you can find literally anything, especially for you, Hazel. If you're looking for an administrative assistant, you can find someone for sure, because I've done it. You can find someone who is knowledgeable in bookkeeping, tax preparation, any of those tasks you need. You don't need a generic admin. Try to find someone who specializes in what it is that you need, unless you're really just, you don't need someone to do that. You need someone to just come in and just help out. But for the most part, we all need specialization because we're specializing in something. But you can find someone on Upwork using that hiring process that I laid out. Create your job description, throw that code word in there. Go back and listen to the recording, all the steps. And then, definitely you can find someone on Upwork. Outsourcing is good as well.
Got it. And then so that next follow-up question she had is, do you recommend using retired individuals part-time? And I guess, do you ask that question? Is that a question that you can ask if someone is retired? No.
Yeah, no, I never really know their living scenario. So for example, the last project manager that was just with us, she actually, when I first hired her, she was working for something, I don't know. And then in the midst of like us working together, she ended up quitting her job. So to me, it doesn't really matter. My question for them is more making sure that they have capacity for what it is that I need. So again, that's where that deciding on the commitment, right? If you only need someone for 10 to 15 hours, you need to say that. And you also need to set expectations. If I need you, maybe it's 10 to 15 hours, but there's a meeting for 2 hours every Friday. We have that. There's a meeting for every 2 hours every Friday. You need to say that, hey, I need you for this meeting. But the rest of the stuff, you just show up whenever you show up. I don't think
Do
it really.
you put that in the job description? I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Okay. So
yes,
those
I do, because
specific that. Mm-hmm.
yeah, and this is a thing that we run into. I think in the early stages, we want a lot of people to submit, but at the end of the day, you don't want to waste your time. And you definitely don't want to waste their time. So if you're upfront and you're really detailed, I need you for this amount, it's a monthly, it's fixed, there's opportunities for this, da, 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 and you're really specific, someone's going to read that post and say, this isn't for me. And that's what you want. You want, because I'm telling you, the talent is out there. So you really want to have ways to weed through. So the more clear you can communicate. I record videos. I literally just recorded a video to explain the position, and which saves you calls, by the way, because you're going to repeat the same thing over and over again. But I try to be as detailed as possible so they know what they're getting themselves into.
Fantastic. And I know this was a broad topic, and so I appreciate you really giving us the details about what you need to begin. And so if anybody has any questions, we've got about 2-3 more minutes left. You can place them in the chat. We're going to send this out to everybody so that they'll have the replay. And I encourage you, if you know other people that may be struggling with the same thing, and because I know that oftentimes as an entrepreneur, you're also surrounded by others that have that same struggle. So I will be sharing this because I even got some new information today, and I've heard a lot of what you said, but it just hits different when you're thinking about things in the moment of hiring, because
exactly.
Well. So.
Absolutely.
I appreciate your time, Chryssy. So it looks like we don't have any other questions. And I will say that's a testament to the clarity and information that you provided. So I know the step 2 is when people need information about that next step, because once you've hired, that's a part of the solution. But the next part of it is making sure that you have those processes in place, that you have those tools in place to really be able to work with your team and to make sure that everything is running effectively. Because going from 1 to 5, 1 to 2, 1 to 3,
no, don't do that.
Come along with it.
Yeah, real quickly, my quick tip on that: if you don't have the processes, don't let that become a block in getting some help. You just hire that person and you let them. So a real quick example: if you're looking for a customer service rep, every time they come to you to ask you a question on how to answer it, you're going to have them document the answer somewhere, so that when at the end of, say, a month, you have a full list of documentation someone can search and find the answer. And then when you hire someone else, you're not starting over from scratch. You're giving them the documentation and they're just building it. So you can build processes as you go. You do not need to document a bunch of things and have everything in the perfect spot
in advance. Got it. So don't let that hinder you. So I love sharing people's information. I bring you experts, but I want to make sure you know how to connect with them. So I just dropped a link in the chat to reach out to Chryssy at Kolor Addikt if you have some design needs, if you have some marketing needs. And this is the perfect segue because she did create our AIB marketing website, which is just finalized. So you all get the very first peek at exactly what our website looks like. So I also just placed that in the chat. I appreciate your time. It is now 4:30. And so have a wonderful day. Chryssy, thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.